We have a major update revolving around the Phoenix Suns as Shams Charania just dropped a major update revolving around a specific player that has been linked to the Phoenix Suns via trade. So we have to digest and discuss what is going on. Are the Suns going to be getting in a blockbuster deal? And will the fans and Brian Gregory even be happy what they could get in return? We're going to be diving and getting into all of this and more on this episode of Suns Digest. I am Bruce Velez, and you guys have been absolutely fantastic, showing your love and support for the Phoenix Suns, even with being kind of in the dark days this season, obviously in the off season now. Some things have kind of picked up speed. We saw Brian Gregory have his introductory press conference, and more news will be dropping about this team as we get closer to the draft and to free agency. So if you want to make sure you stay up to date on everything, make sure to hit that subscribe button, as 65% of you guys who watch these videos are not subscribed. And we'll get into today's video at hand today. Make sure to get your snack and let's get into the news, as we got some new news, like I mentioned, revolving around Kevin Durant and revolving around this Phoenix Suns team. And not directly revolving around Kevin Durant, but someone that is linked to Kevin Durant. As we see here from Shams Charania, that the Houston Rockets and guard Fred VanVleet are pushing back his Friday deadline date of June 20 to June 29th on his $44.9 million team option for the 2025-26 season, sources tell ESPN. This gives both sides additional time to navigate exercising this option versus completing a longer term deal. And this is something that obviously was going to be discussed alongside this Rockets team, specifically with them. They got bounced in the first round, as Fred VanVleet's $45 million contract is a tradable contract and one that they necessarily do not really need within this roster with their young core. But you might be saying, Bruce, why are you talking about Fred VanVleet, the Rockets? This isn't Rockets Digest, this is Suns Digest, and you are right. But as we all know with this Phoenix Suns team, the Rockets have been a key person to watch out for within this push for Kevin Durant because of that contract with Fred VanVleet. And Evan Cedery lets us know that with the Rockets moving Fred VanVleet's team option, the deadline to the end of June, that he is now eligible to be potentially dealt on in a draft night trade. For reference, VanVleet and the Suns own the picks back for Durant, and that could be a legal trade framework for the Houston Rockets. And this is kind of getting, more and more revealed as we're getting down to it here. But as we all know, the Rockets have shown this interest with the Phoenix Suns dating back to the trade deadline when the Suns almost shipped out Kevin Durant, but also around the end of this season when the Suns started to fizzle out. We saw that from Shams Charania on ESPN just a couple weeks ago. He said, if you lose early, could the Rockets look at a guy like Kevin Durant? Monitor them, as he said the Rockets obviously had a level of mutual interest and working together with Durant. And we also know, obviously, that they were eliminated by the Golden State Warriors, right? And a key factor of that was their offensive ability. They didn't have that extra superstar guy to kind of match that offensive replication of guys like Stephen Curry, Jimmy Butler, and even Draymond Green in that Game 7. And that's ultimately why this Rockets team fell short. So adding a guy like Kevin Durant would make sense for them, and moving off a contract like Fred VanVleet would also make sense for the Rockets. But why would it make sense for the Phoenix Suns? Obviously, they have a Devin Booker. This would not be the greatest return, but ultimately, the main prize here is those draft picks. As we discussed earlier, the Rockets have three of the Suns' future draft picks in 2025 this season, which is a lottery protected pick in 2027 and in 2029, where they have the swap rights for it alongside Dallas. And I would expect, like Evan mentioned, if the Suns want to engage in a deal with Kevin Durant and are progressing towards doing that this offseason, as all ties have really told us this year, that it will be getting done this offseason, and the Rockets could be a team to monitor. And with them having this contract pushed back, this could be a contract that realistically could be coming back to the Phoenix Suns. And ultimately, I'm not the happiest about that. Obviously, I would not want to have Fred VanVleet alongside Devin Booker, as they similarly are very much the similar play style. And once again, it would be another thing of having Booker and Bradley Beal on this team. But hopefully the Phoenix Suns will be able to get off Bradley Beal's contract as well, with taking back a player in Fred VanVleet to make things a little bit easier, and potentially look to move off of Fred VanVleet in the trade deadline halfway through the season or in the next season coming. But that is something definitely to keep an eye on as a Phoenix Suns fan. But I don't think Fred VanVleet is the only player that can be brought back in a trade from the Rockets going to this Phoenix Suns team. And I think there are other players that we can explore and discuss as well. So we're going to get into that in the next part here, which is diving in and looking at some possible packages for Kevin Durant. Now, With Fred VanVleet obviously being on a team option right now, the website that I use, Spot Track, to do trade machines, won't allow him to be traded. And Fanspo won't give you the right projections because they don't have next year's salary cap. Therefore, I cannot present you a trade of what I actually want to do with this team, but I have pictures and we're going to discuss the players that we can get. Obviously, the first one being Fred VanVleet. Kind of talked about him a little bit earlier. I don't think he would be the greatest fit alongside Devin Booker, just because, once again, two smaller offensive guards. Fred VanVleet looked solid for the Rockets this year, but once again, isn't really worth that $49 million price tag that his name is attached to. And I think if the Suns were to get a player like Fred VanVleet in this deal, it would kind of be their last case scenario or just a salary filler alongside one of those young players and those picks. Who knows? Maybe if they do take a bad contract in Fred VanVleet, they're able to get all of their picks back or two of three of their picks back in a deal involving the Rockets, and that might give them some more leeway to potentially even invest into some younger movement or potentially look to move off of Fred VanVleet's contract, like I said earlier. But there's also some other players I think the Rockets would be looking to move off of. I think Cam Whitmore is another one that the Suns would definitely look to add, as once again, they have no wings on this roster. It's mainly guards or bigs. And adding another young wing like Cam Whitmore alongside Ryan Dunn, I think could be very valuable for this team. Whitmore also kind of fell out of the rotation in Houston with their abundance of wings, right? With Dillon Brooks and Tari Eason, he's kind of been that third guy, and still has that untapped potential on the offensive side. I really think to bring that out in Phoenix. I think him attached alongside a guy like Fred VanVleet is probably going to be the package that Suns fans expect to get back with either one or two of those picks. And I think that would be pretty valuable for this team. Another player as well to be mentioned is Jabari Smith Jr. As Jabari Smith Jr. obviously plays that power forward position. And if the Rockets trade for a Giannis or potentially a Kevin Durant, here we're talking about in this video, they would have to realistically give up Jabari Smith to kind of put Kevin Durant in that hole alongside Alperen Sengun. And Jabari hasn't really panned out, similar to these guys like Sengun or Amen Thompson, right, being that third overall pick, hasn't really taken that step yet, but I still feel can be a solid defender and rebounder and can still work in that post game, similar to how Durant did for this Suns team, and replicating that post style of offense for this Suns team in a little bit of a different variance for this squad. I think he is another player to keep an eye on alongside these trade rumors if they don't get a deal involving Fred VanVleet and possibly trying to get two or three contracts, maybe with just one draft pick to kind of set them up for now, and ultimately banking on those future picks not being that valuable because they'll be good by 27 and by 2029. And lastly, the other player I want to discuss, one that Suns fans aren't the biggest fan of, but I think would kind of bring that grit and grind that obviously he brought in Memphis and Houston, and that's Dillon Brooks, ladies and gentlemen. He, I think, would be a valuable asset for a defensive wing alongside Ryan Dunn, could be another little mentor, and could just be another defensive piece that Matt Ishbia has stated that they want for this team, right? Brian Gregory alluded to it yesterday multiple times on him and Matt Ishbia being aligned and making sure they target these right guys that fit this identity for Phoenix. And they want to go into that defensive nature. They want to go into that defensive identity, which they kind of said they wanted to change at their end of the year press conference with Matt Ishbia. Dillon Brooks, I kind of think, fits that hole. Ultimately, I do not think players like Amen Thompson, Alperen Sengun, Tari Eason are going to be available via trade for the Houston Rockets because I think those guys present a lot of valuable qualities to that team originally. And ultimately, I do think a player in Jalen Green will be available, but once again, I think he is not what the Suns need. I would rather get Fred VanVleet than Jalen Green for this Phoenix Suns squad because once again he's coming in, he's going to be playing that shooting guard role. Booker will go back to the point guard. We'll have two ball dominant guards once again, but this is even worse because Jalen Green isn't the best passer and doesn't really like to pass, and he's even more inefficient in some instances compared to a player in Fred VanVleet. I think if the Rockets are looking to move off of a player in Jalen Green, he needs to go to a spot where he's going to be able to thrive and kind of figure himself out as a one or two, potentially even third option for that team. And the Phoenix Suns are not that, specifically when they have a guard in Devin Booker playing the positions that he would be starting in. At least with Fred VanVleet, he has that veteran experience. He's a little bit pass heavy. And I do believe with Fred VanVleet that there would be more teams willing to take on his, chunk of change of contract that he is gifted on this team option as a 1-and-1 as an expiring deal if the Suns, get to a point where it isn't working out and they would rather go towards the bottom, towards maybe the top if things start to unravel once again. Next. season. But ultimately, with this Suns team, there's a lot to really discuss and look at with these trades. Like I really mentioned, I think Fred VanVleet's going to kind of be the selling point for the Rockets. I think they're going to try to move off of him in this Kevin Durant saga. And that's why I think package surrounding Fred VanVleet, Cam Whitmore, and potentially one or two, that 2025 pick, depending on where it falls in the lottery, could be very valuable for the Phoenix Suns and may even, rise that asking price if it falls into a top 4 or top 5 pick for the Rockets itself to where they only get one pick. But I think they can get one, potentially even two picks back with a Fred VanVleet and Cam Whitmore package for Kevin Durant. If not, I would obviously presume another deal revolving around Jabari Smith, Dylan Brooks, and potentially Cam Whitmore with one of those picks as well. I don't think they'd be able to get two picks in that deal because they are getting three players and three decently valuable players for this Houston Rockets squad as well. But it all depends on what direction the Suns really want to go. And Brian Gregory didn't really give us any into details on that press conference. We know he wants a change. We know he wants alignment. He wants a new identity that him and Matt Ishbia have presented. But we don't know what that necessarily really means, right? We don't know what the type of players he necessarily wants, right? We don't know what type of trade he is looking for. Is he looking for a veteran-ready package with kind of some young guys that can sprout and work with Devin Booker? Or does he want a very draft-heavy package with maybe one veteran as a salary filler to kind of throw out there for the Suns? Lots of questions are going to be asked, a lot to break down on this Phoenix Suns team, and we're going to be doing it here on Suns Digest when all the news comes out. So make sure to hit the like, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section on these trades, which ones you like, which players you would like to see come back from the Rockets if the Suns do a deal with the Rockets. And ultimately, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We'll be live tomorrow for you guys at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific to go over everything regarding this Phoenix Suns team that has happened so far post last week and with Brian Gregory in his introductory press conference and any more news that comes out with this team. So once again, hope to see you guys there tomorrow. If not, have a great rest of your day and go Phoenix Suns. Peace out, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.